My pleasure. Thanks.
And a judge set John Carr's first court date for this Monday, as we were talking about. Stephen Louth, who joins us from Boulder, knows all the players in this case. He's a local criminal defense attorney, but he was also a Boulder deputy district attorney. Stephen, nice to see you.
Good evening.
So let me ask you about the judge first and foremost. What I really thought was interesting, here's what we know so far. She went to a New York law school. She majored in anthropology as an undergrad. She's considered a very intelligent judge. But Stephen, she sat and supervised the grand jury in the investigation in the JonBenet Ramsey case. So she knows a lot about the evidence already. Is that fair?
Well, at this point in time, I don't think anyone's even sure that she's going to be the judge throughout the proceedings. I suspect that's going to be the case. Just because she sat and oversaw the grand jury proceedings, I don't think precludes her from being the judge to actually hear the case. Judges frequently hear evidence outside the presence of the jury, and that doesn't mean that the judge can't be fair or should be disqualified or recused or have another judge appointed.
Tell me about the public defenders. There are two of them, Seth Timon and Doug Wilson, coming in from Denver. Carr has asked for them to represent him. How do they do in front of this judge?
Well, you mentioned a public defender that I'm not aware of, actually. Seth Timon is a public defender from Jefferson County. That's the county just south of Boulder County. He was transferred to this county approximately 4 or 5 months ago when the former head of the public defender's office, Steve Jacobson, retired. I haven't followed the news real closely, to be honest with you, Jamie, and I was under the impression that the former public defender head of this office, Steve Jacobson, was coming back to join in the representation of Mr. Carr. The reason being that Mr. Jacobson had established himself as sort of an in-house DNA expert for the public defender's office, which of course is a statewide office.
If DNA is even something that can be linked in this case, we're going to talk about that with Dr. Henry Lee later. Do you think, since you were a part of this office before the JonBenet Ramsey case, looking at it objectively, did Colorado drop the ball when they got the information from California authorities about Carr's fascination with this case?
Well, I can't really say one way or the other whether they are, because I don't know what sort of steps they took after they got that information. For all I know, they could have sent an investigator out there to follow up on things. I mean, I just can't say whether anyone did or didn't do anything in response to that type of information. I wish I could tell you more, but I simply can't. I wasn't there.
All right, Stephen Louth, stand by. I want to bring in our legal panel on this conversation. Joining us from San Francisco, former Assistant DA Jim Hammer, and in D.C., criminal defense attorneys Ted Williams and Bernie Grimm, all giving up their Friday night to be with us. Thanks, guys. Good to see you all. Bernie, let me start with you. This judge is certainly, initially making the ruling about no media in the case. Can you read anything into that?
Yeah, I mean, he anticipates, and I completely understand that, given the age in this case, the notoriety, the emotionally charged aspects of the fact of a young, beautiful girl getting murdered under some very bizarre circumstances, that every media organization is going to mount a First Amendment assault on this courthouse to get cameras inside the courtroom, news reporters outside, and as much media outlet to the entire world as possible. Now, the judge is up against the First Amendment, but he's got the final say. He says no cameras in the courtroom. That's it.
All right. It's actually a woman, and this information just out today.
I'm sorry, I'm being sexist as usual.
No problem. Judge Roxanne Balin, chief judge there, and as I said, she presided over the grand jury in this case. What do you think, Ted? Is there a problem with that she knows the evidence already?
Well, I don't think that it is a direct problem. This is the judge, I believe, who also issued the possible arrest warrant in this case. So she must have believed that there was some probable cause to issue this arrest warrant. And that's one of the questions that I would like to ask Mr. Louth, if I possibly could, Jamie. And that question is, As you know, Mr. Louth, the public is hungry to find out what was in that arrest warrant that allowed for probable cause. The question that I would like to ask is, why do you believe, if the prosecution believes that it has the right and proper person, that they want to keep the arrest warrant sealed at this time?
Stephen?
Well, at this point in time, are we sure that it's the prosecution that's attempting to seal that arrest warrant and it's not the public defender's office? I mean, it could be both, or it could just be one side. I can tell you that in prior murder cases that I worked on in the district attorney's office in Boulder, we would move to seal an arrest warrant if we were concerned about particular facts of the case getting out to witnesses who were going to be testifying in the case. We wanted to keep their testimony pure and untainted from other evidence in the case, because as you know, in any jury trial, witnesses are not allowed to hear other witnesses testify. And so if you release that affidavit in support of that arrest warrant, then what you're going to have is a full exposure of everything that's been said in the case. And
but that happens every day in our court. That happens every day in our criminal justice system, where arrest warrants are open to the public. A trial is a public trial.
And Ted, this case is a little different already. Not that it doesn't just get stranger every day. Jim, let me bring you in here, because the prosecutor is under no obligation to tell us anything. But we saw this guy on the plane having champagne and using cutlery, a stainless steel knife. So it doesn't seem like they thought he was such a danger. So why not tell us something so that we can understand what's going on?
You know, back to that plane flight, when I heard the news of that from one of our cameramen, actually, I was actually pretty offended by it. Unless the idea was to soften him up and get him talking, we won't find out for a while, actually, what he had to say. You know, the prosecution will be under the gun pretty soon, Jamie, and that is, although not at this first appearance, the Colorado statute says without unnecessary delay that DA has to file charges and let the judge gives the DA more time. I'd like to ask the guest, how much time do you think this judge will give?
You know what, Jim, I got it. Hey, hold on to that thought. Stephen, I know I have to let you go, but I thank you so much. Sure. Panel, stand by. There's a lot more coming up.